ona bango.
Greetings to all of you who have joined us. I see there are over 100 already. We've been waiting for this program to start, and we expect a full house today, and not without good reason. The title of the session that we have before us makes reference to the dance floor. That comes from Chamisa's statement 2 weeks ago, when he spoke of the political field in Zimbabwe as a dance floor, and in doing so also appeared to dismiss what was already a challenge to the current process underway, the process which began with cabinet on Tuesday, which didn't appear as serious as it is now, 2 weeks ago. Clearly, those who were launching the the Constitution platform, had long anticipated this process, and credit to them, therefore. And maybe we can excuse Chamisa for what an apparent flippant statement on describing the fight against the defense against the mutilation of the Constitution as a sideshow. Clearly, his latest statement shows that he no longer regards it as a sideshow, that he is as concerned as all of us about what's going on. And therefore, a good reason why we should now focus on the issue before us. And I'm going to have, to save time, I'm going to have Mirazi Gisai, a prominent academician among us, a lawyer, and one of the members of the DCP, defend the Constitution platform, to outline. Then I'll call on another eminent lawyer among us, Brighton Mutabuka, from way out there in the UK, to join us, after which we'll have my dearest Chipo. She's in California right now at 7 in the morning, braved it for us, and she's launching a book, Death, Division, and what is it, Chipo?
Death, Diversion, and Departure.
We can't hear you.
You can't again.
I can hear you.
You can?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
And then I'll have Agency Gumbo, and then Hopel Shingono. And I think the only three of us at home here. Hopel is somewhere in the diaspora. I don't know where. I never keep up with him. So, but welcome to all of you. Without much ado, let's ask Gisai to outline and frame the discussion for us. Welcome.
Saliwonani, Kwaziwa, greetings.
We can't hear you. Is, David.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear him, Prof.
Yes, we can hear you.
David.
Prof, are you able to get me? Chipo, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Continue.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes, Prof, kwenyu kwa thinking mwakunizwa.
We can't hear you.
Kwa Prof ndokune dambuzigo. Yours, Prof.
Hopefully you can hear me.
David, I can't hear anything here.
Can I just confirm with the rest of my colleagues on the panel they can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Our network.
Proceed.
Our network is on.
Prof, I can hear you. I can hear you myself, Prof. So maybe
we can hear you. It's just that you cannot hear.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Prof.
I can't hear you.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe log out and log back in.
Are you sure you're not muted?
Log out.
Do we proceed?
Try south.
Keep going, Munya.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, keep going. If you can hear me, keep going. We'll fix those connections.
So I can proceed?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Prof. Ibo. My name is Munya Gwisai. I'm a member of the National Executive of the International Socialist Organization in Zimbabwe. I'm also a member of the National Working Committee of the recently launched Defend the Constitution platform, DCP. And I'm also with the Zimbabwe Labour Center. which brings together trade union activists, and I also teach at the University of Zimbabwe. So those are my introductions. Very important occasion today, and I'm happy and honored to be here with colleagues and comrades who have also been engaged in interrogating the fundamental questions of the day that we face in Zimbabwe today. So thank you very much for my colleagues. I look forward to an engaging discussion with all of us. It is important that we do this because what is at stake is the very future of this country in terms of the aspirations of its people, as reflected in the 2013 Constitution, which was a product of the struggles of workers, the struggles of students, youth, professionals, demanding that the aspirations and ideals of the anti-colonial liberation struggle of democratic rule, one person, one vote, that those who govern must govern on the basis of the consent of the governed, the social contract of society. So that history and that struggle, it's a history that starts against racist British colonialism that subjugated and oppressed and exploited the vast majority of our people on the basis of race and class, and for which tens and thousands of our people sacrificed their lives. And a struggle that was then resumed and re-engineered after 1996, 1997, led by the workers and students, leading to the formation of the MDC, leading to the formation of the NCA, and with a fundamental demand of democratic governance, a people-driven democratic constitution, which was then partially realized in 2013 with the 2013 constitution, in which over 90% of those who voted supported it. Ironically, we were at the Zimbabwe Labour Center amongst those who were in the vote no thing because we felt it didn't go far enough. But today, we do now see, given what has happened. So this is a very important occasion. And I want to thank Ibo, Tony, and your colleagues at SAPES for hosting this very important event, very timely, but also for being there, being all-weather friends of the struggle for democracy in this country. Barely 4 or 5 months ago, when we tried to do the presser at SAPES, SAPES had to pay a very dear price with the bombing of its seminar room, which up to date has not been fully renovated. And it is our task as the people of Zimbabwe and democrats in the world to ensure that we restore this home of the struggle so that we are able to continue having a home. So I want to thank you, Ibo, and your team for continuing to avail yourselves for this struggle. So a very, very important point, very, very important event. When we started, we were looking at the return of Nelson Chamisa, the leader of the main opposition, into fully active political activity. But as you've said, that a lot has happened, and in many ways, the crisis that faces us now requires us to address the main task of the day. But the phrasing of it, and even the raising of the discussing the importance of the Chamisa factor, it was not necessarily wrong. In the sense, I hear some people say, why focus on an individual? Others will say, Tima is balanced. Munhu wani wachamisa chete anozoti ndiani ndofunga ndinda anchirehwa ipapa but you know, I've known Chamisa for quite a while. I knew him as a student at Poly. He's among a generation of student leaders and activists that were part of, you know, that were recruited and developed and mentored in the ISO. So Chamisa is one of them. A few weeks ago, your last one, Ibo, you had Briggs Bomba. He was also amongst our student leaders in the ISO at that time. Charlton Wende, Hopwe Ugumbo. So So we've known these students, leaders, and are happy and proud with the role that they've then gone on to play in national politics. Yes, sometimes we'll have strong words where we feel that path are diverging and so forth. But Chamisa is an important person and factor in this constitutional crisis and in this crisis of democracy. In the fact that indeed one of the main reasons behind this egregious, this audacious attack on the very foundations of Zimbabwean democracy is actually designed to deal with what Chamisa represents. And in the sense that it is the regime is clear after seeing the voting trends in 2018, in 2023, that it lacks, that in an open contest before the people of Zimbabwe, it lacks the legitimate moral right to be able to stand anyone who would have a thing. If you look in 2018, ZANU had about 66% of the 2/3 of the National Assembly, but Mnangagwa barely went above 50.5%, just passed through by 30,000 votes. The same thing happened in 2023. Mnangagwa had slightly increased, if the figures are to be believed, to about 52. Chamisa was around 44-45%. ZANU was around 63%. So it's clear that Mnangagwa has consistently performed much poorer than his party in parliament, and vice versa for Chamisa. So what has happened with this bill is to deal with that, both in terms of Mnangagwa, but also critically the post-Mnangagwa period, to ensure that ZANU-PF then leverages on its parliamentary majority to then abolish the right of the people to vote for their president. And the key target of that clearly is Chamisa. And he's important as a figure. His return is important because as I say, has represented a major factor as shown by the elections in 2018, in 2023. So one of the main changes that has now happened under the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026 is now to change the format of elections of the president from a popular direct vote by the people of Zimbabwe, as has been the case since 1990, and now putting this to less than 500 people in parliament. So that's it's important. Chamisa is an important figure, not just because of his own personal characters and qualities. It's because he's the heir to the great movement of the working class, of the students, of middle classes that happened in this country after 1996, 97, 98, 99, 2000. The same movement that was able to wipe out ZANU-PF in the 2000 elections. The same movement that was able to defeat ZANU-PF in the February 2000 referendum. The same movement that defeated ZANU-PF and Robert Mugabe in the March 2008 elections. So a great movement that was initiated and led by the trade union movement and the working class that shook to the foundations the dictatorship of Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF. So it is that movement which Chamisa sits on in the post the death of Tsvangirai. So it is always important to remember this, that it is not an individual situation, but it is a legacy of a movement. And that legacy places great responsibility on Chamisa, a responsibility to understand the aspirations of the people. And this is why, in the article that I did, and others have raised it, sometimes he has not acted with sufficient sensitivity to that responsibility. He is coming in at this moment of the constitutional and democracy crisis, therefore important, because he's an important player who will be important for the struggle that faces us. And this is not a small struggle. And I think Chamisa has to be serious, because some of the signals that he has sent have sent confusion and have shown strategic weaknesses in dealing with this crisis that confronts us. So initially, he underplayed the nature of the constitutional crisis that we faced. reflecting the efforts at fighting 2030 as a sideshow and a false fight and so forth. But also recently in his obituary to Geza, to Bombshell Geza, acknowledging that Geza was a hero, acknowledging that Geza's declaration that the only 2030 that Mnangagwa will see is on the clock, that nothing will change. Now that is important. But then sometimes you also get messages of cars and wheels that also send wrong messages. So Chamisa has to be serious and recognize the seriousness and importance of the struggle that we face today and the role that he, as one of the critical leaders of this movement, have. And it is, as I've said, he's already one of the main targets of this constitutional bill. Let's be clear, comrades and colleagues and the citizens of Zimbabwe. This is a declaration of war, and a declaration of war on democracy, a declaration of war on the foundations and pillars of the 2013 Constitution. The fundamental value that underlie the 2013 Constitution is the fundamental objective of the liberation war of the anti-colonial struggle. That value and that principle, which is recognized in Section 3 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, the founding principles, is that the power to govern is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. And when you look at the power of the president, of the executive, the Constitution is clear that the power of the executive is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. The power of the legislature is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. The power of the judiciary is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. That is the fundamental principle that underlies the democratic constitutional framework of Zimbabwe as a democratic republic, as laid out in Section 3. This constitutional amendment bill seeks to annihilate this fundamental framework of the Constitution by abolishing, for instance, cancelling the 2028 elections, extending them by 7 years to 2030, creating a 7-year tenure for the presidents after that, fundamentally removing the right of the people to vote for their president, and replace that in a body of less than 500 in parliament. You hear some arguments that, well, that is what happens in South Africa, that is what happens in Botswana and so forth. But what you miss when you look at that is that the full manifestation and expression of democratic rule is when the citizenry is given the right to directly elect those in the highest office of society. And in those countries which have had revolutionary movements for democracy, in terms of the establishment of bourgeois democracy, it is exactly that principle that was carried through. That is why, therefore, when you go to the United States of America, you get a position that the president is elected, essentially, directly from the people through the electoral colleges. If you go to the French, all these came out of the founding bourgeois revolutions for democracy. And therefore, you have the principle that the people must directly elect their president. More so a president who has the kind of power that is enjoyed by the presidents under the Zimbabwe Constitution of 2013. But what is clear now is that ZANU-PF and ED have taken this as an opportunity to reverse, derail, and smash the gains that were made by the working people, by Democrats, by the people of Zimbabwe in the 2013 Constitution, to revert back to the days of the imperial executive presidents under the 1987 Constitution of Zimbabwe amendments. And in fact, in their Politburo meeting that was done yesterday or the day before yesterday, Ziyambi admitted as much. He made it clear that the 2013 Constitution was a document that they were forced to accept and compromise in the GNU, and that they had no choice. They had no choice because the people of Zimbabwe had risen up and stood up and fought for democracy. And now, because they've created a manufactured super 2/3 majority in parliament as a result of chicanery, thuggery, as well as treachery by some in the opposition movement, they realize that they will never have a chance like this again. They've therefore come up with these amendments. So the clear intention is to create a dictatorship and a presidential dictatorship. And that is why you therefore have constitutional amendments that, for instance, will ensure that that facilitates gerrymandering of seats, manipulation of the voters' roll, returning the voters' roll now to the Registrar General. That is why you now have the removal of the restrictions on chiefs to participate in politics, so that they will center around this. Attack on the women of Zimbabwe by removal of the Gender Commission, because the women of Zimbabwe have shown their readiness to fight, and they were some of the biggest beneficiaries of the 2013 Constitution. But the question we have to ask ourselves is why now, and who is the main beneficiary of this program? It is clear that this goes beyond Mnangagwa. You know, Mnangagwa is in his late 80s. But the constitutional amendments that have been done will affect Zimbabweans for generations to come, our children and those still to be born. And the drivers of this are very clear. The drivers of this are these Gananda billionaires who have now captured the state, captured the ruling party. If you really want to see their contempt for the ruling party itself, the 2024 ZANU-PF resolution only authorized that you should have an extension of Mnangagwa's term to 2030. But what they've brought out in the constitutional amendment bill is 100 times, 1,000 times more than that, to actually create a platform for these Gananda billionaires, the crony capitalists who are looting in millions, to actually now move to capture the state. This is really, I think, to look at this and why this fundamental attack on democracy, one has to understand this process. Because the Gananda billionaires are aware that the people of Zimbabwe are not amused and are angry at the poverty that they have. Yet the Ganandas daily display flamboyancy of their ill-gotten corrupt thing. So they know that they will never be able to get a president. So these constitutional amendments are designed at the first level to deal with Chamisa externally as an opposition leader who's established, to deal with Chiwenga internally in ZANU-PF, and facilitate the roads to a Gananda presidents. I was reading someone on social media called Madiba put a very nice statement. He says that the state president is now a few raptors away from these guys. And we've seen it before. When Tagwire wanted to become a member of the ZANU-PF Central Committee, Chiwenga and his supporters tried to stop him. But Tagwire donated over 300 cars, top range Raptors, to every member of the Central Committee of ZANU-PF. And today he is a member of the Central Committee. And if he can do that for a Central Committee of ZANU-PF, you can imagine what he will put for the president of Zimbabwe. Some of those opposition MPs who have been crying for $150,000, they will probably, this will be peanuts when it comes to this. So this is what they're doing, to ensure a state that will be run by the crony capitalists on an austerity neoliberal basis of looting. And to do that, they are ready to smash the democratic pillars of the Constitution. Let me conclude. I've spoken for long and say this fight cannot be won, and what needs to be done. I hear many people say, oh, these people have so much money. They are ruthless. They've just emptied their jails so that they can take in the Democrats and so forth. We have seen, the young Sarawaka assassinated in South Africa. But I think as we have this discussion, we must salute and put our heads to war veterans, in particular, their leader, Bombshell Geza, because they showed us what is possible and what we can do. On the 17th of February, 2025, when Geza and his comrades had threatened a mass national shutdown on the 31st of March, Mnangagwa was forced to come down and renounce the ZANU-PF 2024 resolution. His words were very clear. He says, I'm a constitutionalist. It is not imaginable in the country that anyone can push me to change my retirement debt. I am going to retire in 2028. I know the debt. Now, perhaps because Geza has left us, they probably now have the guts and courage to think they can do what they've done. But they are deadly mistaken. Because what we saw on the 31st of March was that the people's referendum, the people's power that brought this country to a standstill, put the fear of God in Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF, and they immediately froze on their plans to implement ZANU-PF resolution number 1. So in saluting Geza, and why Chamisa must recognize that he is not the only one who was on the dance floor, people like Geza, Knox, and the comrades were able to stop the implementation of ZANU-PF resolution number 1, which was passed in Ulawayo in 2024, for the whole year. And indeed, when they then met in Mutare in October, they had failed to implement it because of the contributions of the war veterans led by Geza. It was only after the failure of the Geza revolution of 17 October that they then felt that they could go ahead. So it is therefore clear from our own history that if we are united and ultimately exercise the rights that are given by us in the Constitution to exercise popular sovereignty, as was shown by Geza, we have the power to stop this. But in order to do so, we require unity across political, social, class divides to take on and defend democracy in terms of the existential threat that it faces now. And that is why the appeal that we put to people like Chamisa to come on board and work with others. But beyond him, this is not a one-man show. This is not a Messiah-run show. We are saying to the workers of Zimbabwe, the students of Zimbabwe, let us come together. This year, the Defend the Constitution platform was established. It has brought together Zimbabweans from across war veterans, workers, trade unions, youth, students, faith-based organizations, churches, women's movements, civic groups. I think you've been seeing their thing. So this movement is bringing together the Zimbabweans in their thousands. And this week we've started a rollout program of people's awareness around the people's resolution that we've put. And the fundamental principles is to say no to 2030, but not just no to 2030. We have a constitution that was established in 2013 that provides the right to a fair wage, the right to strike, the right of empowerment for women, the right of youth, the right to land. All those things have not been implemented. What we have seen is neoliberal austerity. So the DCP, a second leg of the DCP thing, is demand and a campaign, is that we must implement and enforce the rights that we already have, and not just aim and stop at 2030. So the moment is now. The hour is now. The people of Zimbabwe, if you unite and are ready to fight and understand that the ultimate referendum is not a referendum given by 500 people in Harare and Mount Hamden, but that the ultimate referendum is the people's referendum, as was shown by Boda Gezi. Win this battle, we shall. And if we look in Africa in 2014, when Blaise Compaoré tried to do the same thing, to extend his leadership over 25 years, the youth of Burkina Faso came together. The people of Burkina Faso came together. And not only were they able to stop Blaise from getting another term, but they actually threw him out and removed his regime and implemented a new society. So that's where we are. And I think we must take the challenge. It is not too late. We salute heroes like Geza and others who helped us delay this matter. It is in our hands, and therefore we call on the working class people of this country, the middle classes, and others to unite and pick the battle. Thank you, Ibo.
Thanks, Munya Radzi Gusai. A true, he spoke more like a political commissar than a professor of law. But you've done a good job in at least in framing the discussion of today. Take it away from kind of personalization of politics, and you've woven in the Chamisa factor very beautifully in the narrative that you have presented. Thank you. We're coming back to you. Let me turn to Brighton out there in Leeds. You're in Leeds, aren't you, Brighton?
I'm in Leeds, Professor. I've been in Leeds for a very long time. It's almost like home now.
Thanks to social media, it's like you are just next door.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You go ahead and tell us what you think, and maybe also respond to Munyaradzi, especially with respect, one, to the nature of this challenge before us. What does
Indeed.
it really mean? Yes, and secondly, and more important, what do we do about it? I think Isai has outlined the challenge, and you spoke of the DCP. We are all here part of the DCP, by the way. Brighton.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't know if many people know, Nyaradzi Gusai is my former lecturer, but over and above that as well, I feel incredibly lucky that I attended the University of Zimbabwe in the late 90s, and the timing was impeccable in that most of our generation that you see, student leaders, the likes of Jongwe, the likes of Chamisa, the likes of Job Sikala, all those contemporary student leaders are part of my generation, the Tafadzum Secures. And because of that, I was then able to be at the right moment at the right time in terms of the formation of the NCA, when it was formed, the formation of the MDC. So a lot of those student leaders and the opposition movement, as it were, form a core part of my journey in life. Way before I moved to the UK, went into legal practice, of course, and I represented victims of oppression and tyranny by the regime. And I would say my whole life, because of my generation, has been shaped by ZANU-PF misrule. And in a way as well, my journey mirrors the journey of the opposition movement. So essentially, I would also go on and say that Nelson Chamisa is a representation of our generation, from being students, student leadership, and reaching the apex of representing labor, union, the students, and taking over the mantle, as it were, from Morgan Tsvangirai. I took on board what my former professor Nyaradzi Gusai did say, and I would say that the biggest challenge we face, and that even Chamisa himself faces, is dealing with a competitive authoritarian regime. This is a regime that is averse to free and fair elections. It doesn't care about getting legitimacy through affording our people an opportunity to choose in free and fair elections. And because of that, consistently, we see time and time again, it ensures that it thwarts an opportunity to be removed from power through free and fair elections. We are all aware of Morgan Tsvangirai being charged, of fabricated treason charges. I was a young lawyer at the time, and I was quite fortunate to attend the proceedings at the High Court in Zimbabwe. I was also involved in the referendum itself, and we are all aware of how that went. We were overjoyed when we succeeded in defeating ZANU-PF's nefarious agenda via the referendum. There was calm before the storm in relation to that process. We all vividly remember a crestfallen Robert Mugabe appearing on our screens and appearing to be magnanimous and accepting the will of the people. But shortly after that, we all know that the 2000 elections were brutal and many people were killed, and their voice was taken away. And that's been the trajectory that we have been on, you see. So ultimately, the way I see it is that there are threads which connect that journey from the 90s into the 2000s into now. So the way that I would frame our current crisis is that the urgency that we're seeing right now is a created urgency. The reason why I say that is that I've written extensively about this moment. If you go on my X and some of the articles that I've posted and published, I've identified early on in this journey what, for instance, the purpose of Chabangu was, the connection between 2018 and 2023 and now. So essentially, as far as I'm concerned, we are aware from the battle that was there when, in relation to the extension of Chief Justice Malaba's extension. We are aware what that was about. When Chabangu came to the fore, he was weaponized. And my brother here, Hopo, opposed my position when I highlighted that Chabangu was being used as a proxy pursuant to an agenda which would see the entrenchment of power by Idi Mnangagwa. It was argued at the time that Chabangu had legitimate causes, and that his presence and existence spoke to the absence of constitutionalism in the opposition CCC and Nelson Chamisa's refusal to work collectively with other leaders. Now, the reason why this is important is that it shows that there are missed opportunities on that journey. So currently, I acknowledge, I respect, and I embrace the spirit that has been shown in the formulation and creation of the DCP, but I would challenge, in my view, why, for instance, as a matter of fact, given the political realities in Zimbabwe, why the DCP, Professor, is narrowly focusing on challenging Agenda 2030 and the assault on the Constitution. I would say these, the greatest assault, I would call that the proposed amendments. I would go on and call them actually that they are, the precab, constitutional amendments, as it were, because ultimately, I don't want to digress very far, but ultimately, number one, it's a party resolution from ZANU-PF. Number two, besides being a party resolution from ZANU-PF, there is a clear mismatch between the resolution that we saw proposed on our televisions in ZANU-PF and by ZANU-PF in its conference, which was very narrow-minded. That's what I would say. And then secondly, I would also say, even in respect of that resolution, we clearly see an attempt to run away from constitutionally mandated referendums. Face the people. If you're going to propose to make such sweeping changes on our constitutional and institutional framework, go and face the people and get the mandate from the people. So the refusal to face the people and give the people a voice and a say in something that fundamentally changes our landscape can be retraced in its footsteps. From that earlier journey I spoke about, consistently denying people the voice. So 2018, 2023, we see a clear commitment to avoiding giving the people a say in their political journey, respecting their constitutional rights, massive disenfranchisement constitutionally during elections. And there was no pushback. And one of the reasons why this is crucial, Professor, in line of that context of the DCP, and I present this as a generational challenge to all of us. And I pose that question to you, Professor. If you are saying today, and this applies to Hopo as well, if you are saying today we must all come together, why did we not come together in 2018 when there were those massive electoral irregularities? Why did we not come together in 2023 following the sham August 2023 elections? And we see institutions like ZEC, and this is another point I think is crucial because it distracts and diverts attention. Now, these captured institutions, be it the Supreme Court or the Judiciary in general and ZEC, they serve the purpose of ensuring that they buttress the regime's core interests. So when it comes to ZEC, when we say we blame Nelson Chamisa, we blame Morgan Tsvangirai, we blame the opposition movement for not ensuring that V11s are put in place and they can be put forward to prove electoral theft. We are in essence collaborating with the regime unintentionally, and we are sanitizing electoral theft, and we are ensuring that our narrative misses the core point. In South Africa, they have got a similar body. We saw that body publishing results, including putting them on an electoral board. Everything was transparent. And when we do that, we are giving the regime a blank canvas, as it were, to get away and steal elections. Now, why again that's important is that narrative ensures that there is division. It then undermines, our voice, our collective voice, our unity, our sense of purpose, and identifying, in our struggle, the areas that we should focus on. So unity, yes, but qualitative unity. And also, what I would say is this. Here's another challenge that I would pose, Professor, and to the panel. Now, it's important to identify what the real solutions are and what the real crisis is. For me...
So maybe you want to come in later because Chipo is leaving just now?
Yeah, I'll summarize.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'll just summarize in a nutshell in the next 5 minutes.
But you'll have a chance again later on. Yeah.
Okay, so do you want me to pause now then?
Just say what you have to say, and then I move on to Chipo.
Okay.
Carry on.
So very, very quickly, in terms of summarizing this point at this stage, my point is, if the DCP is to be credible, because credibility is important, the solutions that it proposes must relate to the prevailing realities of our political economy. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, if even at its highest it was to be successful today, if it remains with ED and his regime in power, given that they've clearly shown that they've got a penchant for disregarding constitutionalism, what it just entails is that we are postponing that battle to another political season, because the real challenge is an absence of constitutionalism. The reason why 2030 itself is an escalation of a journey that began perhaps even before 2017 with the coup and into 2018. So ultimately, the solution is, in my view, the points that you're putting forward, including my former lecturer there, Gusai, they are important, but they only solve part of the problem. If we were to be successful and we gave everything, they would only solve part of the solution. The full solution is to combine those challenges that have been identified together with the clamor for a free, fair, and credible election. Why that's important is that it will then give our people the voice to elect a leadership which reflects their values and which reflects the journey that they are on. And much more importantly, leaders that are elected in free and fair elections who understand the sense of jeopardy and the responsibility of their mission, and they will respect the will of the people, because they know that if they disregard that will, they'll be voted out. So one of the primary reasons why we're having this problem is that for several decades now, the leadership that is in power in Zimbabwe is not a reflection of the will of the people. They get their power from somewhere else. And therefore, they are not accountable because there is no sense of jeopardy and no sense of fear and respecting the will of the people. So I'll wrap up for now to allow Dr.
You'll
Enda
come
to
back.
speak.
I'll come back to you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Chipo,
Yes.
and congratulations first of all for your latest publication, Death, Division, and Departure. And we wait for you to come home to launch that book.
Yes, or I will do
Just
it
before you start, I just want to say we have a massive turnout today. We have going on to 600 people on this platform. I want to thank all of you, the 531, for joining us, and use the chat if you have to. But we're glad that you have responded so well to the challenge as Zimbabweans, and I think the challenge that Gwisai has put out there on behalf of everybody on the panel is important. And of course, if you miss, you can go back to this discussion on YouTube tomorrow. It will be there. It'll be joining 25,000 other people. So thank you very much. Chipo,
Okay.
have your say.
Yes.
If you can
and,
also
you know, I am
respond to the previous speakers, if you want to, especially Brighton has raised questions, even directed some of them at me. I will answer that later on, Brighton. But the time being is Chipo's turn.
Okay. Hopefully I can then come back immediately after it concludes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that I don't forget.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to stay. I have a talk at University of Berkeley, so those in the audience who might be traveling with me on this book tour, if you're in Berkeley, I'll see you this afternoon. But, you know, one of the things that have happened since the announcement on the amendments is reminding us that we don't have time, right? And I think the challenge for Zimbabwean citizenry, the opposition in particular, is that over the last decade, we've wasted time. We've wasted time having petty arguments. We've wasted time not uniting. And I like what Professor Bisai said, which is a call to seriousness, right? That there is a level of seriousness that is required. And you know that Hopewell and I have had public disagreements, but I do want to credit him because one of the things that he said constantly is that we need to be serious in how we have conversations about the country. And our lack of seriousness has led us to a place where the Constitution is under crisis. So I want to do something because a lot of us are assuming that the majority of the population understands the importance of the Constitution and what is entailed in it. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I want to focus on the Gender Commission, right? So a woman in 1996 would not have been able to inherit her home after her husband died. A woman in 1996. And I start there because in the late 90s, we've got a lot of people experiencing widowhood because of HIV. And one of the big challenges, you've all seen Neria, right? And I've seen Mai Mungoshi, she's very active on social media, and people talk about Neria and how critical it was, right, as a defining cultural moment. But it comes out of the fact that women could not inherit their properties. Women could not own their properties. And so this is something that is protected in the Constitution under the Gender Commission. The other job for the Gender Commission that they've really worked on is on child marriages. Since 2000, right, at the start of COVID, the proportion of children that are married under the age of 18 rose by 400%. 400%. That's a big number. I mean, there have been so many strides in Zimbabwe, but when it comes to the property rights for women, child marriages, gender-based violence, we are still lagging behind. 1 in 3 girls are married before the age of 18. So what they're doing by getting rid of the Gender Commission, and Philan Chia, a colleague and friend, wrote about this a few days ago, is that they are diluting, right, the importance of these gender issues. And the fact that we've got women in parliament, women who represent the opposition, women who represent the ruling party, who've been mute, right, over the last 2 days on the impact of this change. And I think women or Zimbabweans in general are not angry enough, because again, like I said, for the last 10 years, we've wasted time. We've been unserious. I find these debates about whether or not somebody in opposition has done the right thing almost meaningless in this moment, because here is a gift, right, for Zimbabweans, which is to say, here is something concrete that we're now faced with, which is protecting the Constitution. And we need to handle it with the level of seriousness that the moment requires. We cannot afford to have the Gender Commission diluted. The fact that the number of children married under the age of 18 rose by 400% should concern us. And let's think about who are the key characters involved in governance right now. They are religious sycophants, right? They are not the kinds of people that we want to be making policy about women. We've got a government that is led by people that are still pissed off at Grace Mugabe. They're upset about what Grace Mugabe did. And we might not see the patterns, but this is what it's about. It's about silencing women. It's about making sure that we don't get another female vice president, let alone president. It's about eliminating the 60 seats that are protected for women in parliament. Right? This is what it's about. It's about silencing women, because all these people, right? We see them in their jets and so forth. Their values, right? Their religious values are values that promote child marriages. Their values are values that silence women. And these are the key characters that, if we are not serious, and Nelson Chamisa is a dear friend of mine, and you know that I've always defended him, but I have been so frustrated, right, by his comments on the Constitution. And the reason I was frustrated is because I am thinking very deeply about what it means for women and children, not just girls, but all the children. So when political leaders make unserious comments at a serious moment, it dilutes the work that we're supposed to be doing. And there is no room for changing the Constitution. There isn't. In fact, if you look at all the proposals that they're making, these were things that were in the 2000 Constitution that failed to pass. And so now they're bringing the 2000 Constitution from the back door. And in the book and elsewhere, I've written that the 2000 Constitution, when ZANU-PF lost that vote, that was the first time that they had lost a public vote. And they were not happy. So they used the 2000 election Constitution vote as a litmus test, right? And they used that map to see, oh, okay, so where is the opposition popular? And where can we deploy violence and other strategies to minimize the opposition? That's how important this Constitution is. That's how critical this Constitution is. Both Professor Matebuka and Professor Bisai have already alluded to the fact that...
Well, I'm not a professor.
Oh, you're lawyers. Sorry, lawyers.
I don't want to rig. I don't want to
No.
mislead anyone.
But you've both alluded to the fact that the president is, 83 right now, right? And he'll be 90 very soon. So this isn't about him. This is about the people around the president who are interested in securing their own futures. And listen, once somebody comes in and they're not directly elected, we won't be able to get them out. So the other day, I had a young person at Pomona College ask an important question. And they were saying to me, the majority of voters in Zimbabwe are under the age of 35. And most of the remarks here have been about the founding of the MDC, all these stories that we like to tell ourselves in the opposition. But those stories are meaningless to the average voter who, by my current check, is 19. They were not even born when the MDC was being founded. They don't remember the red card. They don't remember the open palm. They don't remember any of that. And so the feelings that we have about the MDC and the unity and all of that, it doesn't appeal to them. What we need to think about is, how do you appeal to these young voters who are saying to me, well, I don't see the reason to vote. I grew up in Harare and my family would vote for the MDC, but Harare is a mess. And you try to explain everything about local governance, but I realize that we are going about it the wrong way. We need to ask ourselves, well, what does the Gen Z in Zimbabwe care about? Why is it that we've seen Gen Z protests all across the continent, but not in Zimbabwe? What is silencing them? And you know what they care about, unfortunately, is that they see these people in their jets, with their cars, with their money, and that's what's attractive to the young person, right? When I was growing up, the model, the people that I looked up to were teachers and nurses and doctors. But you see, teachers, nurses, and doctors are not attractive to the young generation anymore because they're poor. And I've always joked about my nephew who was in medical school was saying, Auntie, can I drop out of medical school? Because, well, I could make more selling things than a doctor, right? So the conversations that we have about the MTC and the history of the opposition, and even the focus on the workers and the middle class, that's not the average voter. That's not the person that we need to understand why the Constitution matters. And for the young Zimbabwean, what we need to say to them is, listen, even under very difficult conditions, these are the things that we managed to achieve through the opposition and through the constitutional protections. And I think that my job right now going forward is really going to be explaining to young women in particular why the Gender Commission matters, what work the Gender Commission has achieved, and how that work impacts them, right? How that work impacts them directly, and what is at stake for them, for me, if that is taken away. So that's the level of seriousness we're going to need to bring. And the onus is not just on Chamisa to do that. I think it's on all of us. One of my good friends texted me this morning and said, Chipo, I just don't think there is anything else we can do. The situation at home is too dire, right? And my thinking is that we have to remember that the job of democracy is continuous. So there's a generation that gained independence and they did their work. So now we ask ourselves, what is the job of our generation? Because listen, whether or not we elect someone from the opposition, once people are in office, they're interested in staying in power, regardless of how democratic they might have been, right? They're interested in staying in power. So I think so often we focused on what ZANU-PF does wrong, instead of how do we protect democracy, the democratic stock, for longevity. And so we need, a lot of young people truly don't understand why the Constitution matters. They don't. They don't see how it makes sense for their lives. They don't see how it will improve their lives, why it matters for their education, why it matters for their access to healthcare. They don't see any of that. So that's where our work is, and I'll pause right there.
No, thanks, Chipo. And thanks for bringing this dimension of the Gender Commission. It's a very poignant point you have made. We take note of that. But also, I just wanted to tell you, I was in the Constitutional Commission of 2000, 1999-2000. There is no relationship at all between that draft Constitution of 2000, which was even better than one of 2013, by the way. It was rejected by the people because it was at the wrong time, at a time when ZANU-PF's fortunes were dire, when the population had no confidence in ZANU-PF and in Mugabe. That's what was rejected. But people, lawyers here would admit that that draft constitution was much better than the 2013 one. So this one is a different thing, even though some of our people who were in the Constitutional Commission at that time are the authors of this version of what's it called? Amendment what? Whatever you call it. The mutilation of constitutional order. Agency, Gumbo, you are Member of Parliament for?
Member of Parliament for Heathcliff constituency.
Oh, Heathcliff, okay. Yeah.
Yes. Formerly Harare North.
Welcome. You have been included in this panel by people, obviously, who have a lot of respect for you and for the work you are doing. So, and we welcome you.
Thank you very much, Prof, and thank you for having me on this platform. I do appreciate the panelists who are here and the submissions that have so far been made, which I believe carry the level of substance and intellectual rigor required particularly in democratic discourse and as we lead this country forward. As you have already mentioned, I'm a member of parliament, and anyone who would listen or look at my position will appreciate that I'm probably what they call a guy in a very precarious position, because everything I do and say has always put me at the risk of losing through illegal channels the mandate I was given by over 12,000 voters in the constituency that I represent today. And what is happening today is what is happening in this time is particularly concerning for me, because it confirms some of the fears that we had when we witnessed the onslaught on Parliament in the year 2023, soon after elections, through the emergency of characters like Chabangu, and obviously them emerging as an agency of ZANU-PF, and which is the position that we always maintained. Why? Because we always suspected that it was a signal of something terrible that was to come. We always suspected that why, after an election, would someone emerge and suddenly start recalling a significant number of MPs, particularly in constituencies where a lot of work had to be put for opposition to win. And it was so obvious that it was to deliver a victory to ZANU-PF. It was to deliver an unfair and illegal advantage to ZANU-PF through now what they have, which is a supermajority in parliament. And our fear was that, what was coming was ZANU-PF's intention to further entrench its control and its authoritarian rule in this country. Our fear was that ZANU-PF had a sinister intention and desire to extend its rule in this country. And that fear has been confirmed by what we now see as the principles that are related to cabinet, and also, sentiments that ZANU-PF is. Okay. Right. I hope I'm being heard.
Okay. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, please go ahead. We can hear you.
Good. So and when that happened during that time, some of us chose to stand with what was right. And I was one of those persons who was very active in terms of organizing the legal strategy and organizing the pushback against the recalls from the very first court date to the very last. And also, standing our ground, even in parliament, to establish what we called a parallel caucus to that which is said to have been led by Sengezo Chabangu. Why? Because we believe that even with the the interference of the opposition movement by ZANU-PF, we needed to continue to represent the voice of the people. We needed to continue to be a voice of reason there, because something big was coming, and when it came, we at least needed to have a certain and significant fraction of people in parliament which represents the voice of the people. Because remember, whatever is going to happen, eventually we're going to have this bill in parliament, we're going to have to debate in parliament. Fair and fine, we did lose some of the fights we fought in court. We did lose some of the fights we fought even in parliament. We established our own pro-citizens caucus. I'm sure if you go back in the recent history, you would know that we tried to organize some of our MPs. There was a requirement. There was a request from the public to say, give us the list of the MPs who are pro, regardless of the view that most people in different circles in our country took, to say everyone who remained in parliament is a sellout. Everyone who remained in parliament is pro-Chabangu. If you're in parliament, you're a Chabangu person. There was a method to our efforts to say, look, we need to stand ground. Also, we can't give up certain spaces, because we believe that the struggle for democracy is incremental. And slowly and gradually, we get to take away some control and ground from the authoritarian ZANU-PF regime. And the 2013 constitution is part of that incremental gain. that the democratic movement in this country has gained. And so, you know, when I saw the topic that you know, Professor Ibo there suggested for this day's panel, you know, I said, you know, when my President Chamisa came out and said I had left the dance floor, he forgot to mention one critical aspect, that he left his back dancers. Some of his back dancers were left on the dance floor. They were there dancing from the, you know, from behind the stage. But of course, perhaps the rhythm was not to the tune that could connect with the majority of the people of Zimbabwe, because of the significant role that he has played in sustaining sustaining, as my fellow learned colleague and my senior lecturer, Dame Nyaradzi Gwisai, mentioned that Chamisa represents an inheritance of a legacy of Morgan Richard Tsvangirai and the democratic movement and the broader movement of people that stood for the constitution that is now seeking to be mutilated by ZANU-PF. I have observed, you see, the numerous debates that you know, have echoed the streets of social media, that have also you know, started to find its way even amongst the you know, ordinary men and women in this country, which is a debate of whether we must fight the constitution to defend the constitution, or we must, you know, sustain electoral contestation. For me, I say that's a debate which I would agree with what Dr. Chipo has said, to say that's noise. Why do I say it's noise? Because it does not speak to any serious contestations on the objectives of the democratization agenda of this country. There is no one, the one who says let's defend the constitution and the one who says let's sustain electoral contestation. Both are having a conversation that cannot exist outside the context of a debate of constitutionalism, outside the context of the debate for the constitution. So it's really, for me, a strategic sequencing contestation, a strategic sequencing difference to say what must go first. And from where we stand, I also am a member of the Defend the Constitution platform. You know, I exist there to coordinate parliament discussion and discourse, and also to coordinate political parties discourse. You see, the DCP itself, from where we stand, we believe that these are efforts that can be done dually, both sustain electoral contestation, but at the same time, you know, answer to the current discourse on constitutional renewal or constitutional reform, as you may want to couch it in terms of intellectual framing. But we believe there's no reason or there's no need for progressive forces to pull from different sides. ZANU-PF has taken advantage of that, because part of the strategy of authoritarian regimes and in the context of competitive authoritarianism, part of the strategy is to sow the seeds of division and confusion and pseudo differences amongst those who are in the opposition, so that they weaken the opposition movement, so that the opposition movement cannot answer to the current questions of the day, because every electoral contest is founded on critical questions of the day that collectively citizens agree on and agree to address. You know, I talk to my colleagues, because, you know, I'm also a player in the electoral game. I was voted by the people. So I always say to people, you see, not everyone who comes to vote for us is our activist or our member. We have a significant number of the population of our country who go to elections and vote against the incumbent. And when they do that because we in the opposition movement have been able to loudly proclaim the deficiencies of the regime of the day. So we have a number of people who have no clue, no idea, or no interest in our differences. They actually are motivated when we pull in one direction. They are motivated when we show that we are working not to fragment ourselves, but to, you know, to further weaken the regime of the day. That is what is going to deliver victory for the people of Zimbabwe. Now, ZANU-PF as you know, at one point it was just but a mere party resolution. But now it is not a party resolution, just a party resolution. It is the wheels are now in motion. And I'll borrow that car and wheels allegory that I know my leader pronounced on Twitter somewhere. But I'm saying the wheels are now in motion. We have a constitutional bill that we have heard even from the Minister of Justice indicating that they have no intention of pulling back. They have insisted and they've taken the position that the Constitution can be amended. The Constitution itself has provisions which say it can be amended. Where we have now certainly differed with them is on the integrity of the methods that they intend to use to amend the Constitution of this country, because we believe that a Constitution has what we call core principles. It has what we call core fundamental principles of any democratic constitution, which, yes, in as much as there can be amendment clauses, we must agree that there are certain aspects of a constitution which require collective consent and collective participation and consensus from the citizens of the country. Principles such as term limits, principles such as issues of the election of the president, those go to the very core of our democratic constitutions. We can't just sit and say there's a cabinet set and then MPs will sit and decide to extend their rule. If we can allow that to happen for 2 years, what happens after 2 years and power is so sweet, they want to again amend the constitution for a further 2 or further 5 years. At the end of the day, we might have ZANU-PF, if we allow them to have their way. One day they will wake up and say there will be a president for life. One day they will wake up and say this country is going to be a one-party state, and then they will mutilate the whole concept of multi-party democracy. So this is one of the reasons why we have taken a stand against the Constitution. I want to speak, Prof, before you get in, just for in 2 minutes, if you may allow me, to say there is a development that I've been asked about throughout the day. I was in Parliament earlier, and then I was being asked, no, we know that MPs in Parliament are going to accept these amendments because it also benefits them and so on and so forth. While I can't speak for individuals, comrades and friends, I must insist and state that, look, the people in Parliament were elected by the citizens of Zimbabwe. The people in Parliament do not live at Mount Abden. They do not live in hotels in Harare. They go back to their various constituencies. They go back to face the citizens of this country. They are neighbors to doctors, neighbors to common, vendors, neighbors to our labor people who are out there in their constituencies, who they have to interact with and meet every day on the road. Now it is the time that the citizens really claim that role they have of taking their leaders to account. So yes, a leader might have this interest of saying, I want to stay in power for more than the time I was given. But the people of Zimbabwe, once we have successfully educated them, our advocacy is on point, as we have started to do in the DCP. We are saying, go to your local MP and demand a position on this. When an MP is in Parliament, yes, they might have been voted for on a party card, but they were not voted for by just their party members. They were voted for by the general citizenry in their constituency. And those citizens have power in their hands. And MP, when you go to the MP's house, go to the MP's office and say, yes, you might have a resolution from where, you went and sat there in Mutare and air-conned tents. But here in the constituency, we need a resolution from a representative, which we sent to Parliament, because part of the constitutional obligations of a member of Parliament is to represent the people, not the party. The Constitution does not speak of the party. It speaks of representing the people in a constituency. So the people must take back their power and get an MP to account. I say so as an MP myself because I've taken a position to say I will fight the amendments both in Parliament, in court as a lawyer also, and I also fight this very same amendment in the streets. Why? Because I don't want to go back to the people of Redcliffe, and I'm one of the people who betrayed their interest. What is the interest of the citizens? Now we must engage with the citizens. Brighton Muteboga, it's not about you know, let's focus on electoral contestation. Yes, let's focus on electoral contestation, but in the context of what is happening today, there is no reason for people to pull umweoko. Let's go to the people per ground. I believe that the DCP, where it is, you ask the question, why are we narrow? No, while the DCP is focusing on the anti-2030, anti-mutilation of the Constitution, and also focusing on the implementation of the Constitution.
We'll come back to that, agency. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to the second round to answer people's questions on the platform. Let's go, Hopewell. Yes. Last but not least. Can you hear me, Hopewell? Can you hear me?
I can't hear Dr. Mandaza. Is it me or there's something wrong?
I can hear you.
We can hear you, Hopewell. We can hear you.
Okay, but I can't hear what he's saying.
No, it must be him. It's your turn now.
He says you can speak.
He says I can speak. Okay.
Yes.
No, that's fine. Turn now. Thank you very much, everyone. It's great to be here. I want to start by just correcting one thing which my brother Brighton mentioned. I did not defend Shabangu. I simply explained the events that led to what he was doing. Just put it there. I think one of the biggest problems that we have had in Zimbabwe and we continue having is that we don't want to retrospect. We don't want to look at events that have happened in the past so that they do not happen again. So I'm going to be a little bit of a historian in order for us to understand why we are here today. So I'll start with the 2000 constitutional draft. I remember I covered that as a journalist, and a lot of people were so fired up about voting no, because it was seen as something that would give a bloody nose to Robert Mugabe particularly, and ZANU-PF as his political party. But in essence, when we look back with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, we actually realized that the 2000 draft was far much better than what we got in 2013. And the reason why the no vote prevailed, again, is because that looking at narrow issues, it was the issue of the land, which Mugabe got anyway, regardless of voting no against the Constitution. And then we go to 2006. The opposition split. And the reason why the opposition split is a constitutional issue, something that we need to talk about, because that's what led to the opposition splitting. It was an opposition of constitutionalists, and yet it split because the Constitution was not followed. We all know about the senatorial vote. Morgan Tsvangirai lost, and after losing the vote, because of personality politics, something that has been with us since the Robert Mugabe days in the 1980s, where he was able to go into the Midlands and Matebeleland and kill people, but remain very popular because of personality politics. Morgan Tsvangirai got away with what he did because of personality politics, but it led to the weakening of the opposition movement as we knew it in 2000. Then we go to 2008. Again, the opposition was able to defeat ZANU-PF both in parliament and the presidential election. In fact, the presidential vote was so bad that it had to take a month for ZANU-PF to try and doctor the results. And then we ended up with a government of national unity. Again, mistakes were made there. The government of national unity was not meant for just governing the country. Its main purpose was to make sure that reforms are implemented. Some reforms were implemented, like the 2013 Constitution, but many of the reforms were not implemented, partly because Those that were in government, I hope they will write books. They become relaxed. And when it got to a point where they realized that Robert Mugabe was now going to railroad the country into an election in 2013, people started running around. I remember the last SADC meeting in Maputo. Professor Mandaza, you were there in Maputo, and you know very well that they were told by Jacob Zuma not to participate in those elections. His argument was that if you participate in these elections, it will become difficult for SADC or South Africa, as the point person of SADC, to do anything about the rigging that we all knew was going to take place. Again, they didn't listen. I remember Morgan Tsvangirai at a press conference at Charterhouse where he said one of his lieutenants, referring to Nelson Chamisa, had been told by God that they were going to win the election. We know that they didn't win the election. And we know that Morgan Tsvangirai was telling the truth because the evidence of that statement still remains on Twitter today. Then we go to 2014, where Nelson Chamisa was in pole position to win the Secretary General position of the Movement for Democratic Change, T. We all know that Morgan Tsvangirai rigged that election in favor of Douglas Monzora, and Chamisa did not make it. It was a contrived result. And then we go to 2016. Again, there were illegal appointments that were made by Morgan Tsvangirai, appointing Elias Mzuri and Nelson Chamisa as vice presidents, contrary to their constitution. Advocate Eric Matinenga, who had been a minister belonging to Morgan Tsvangirai's party, wrote a paper telling his party that this was illegal, again because of personality politics. It was not listened to. The document was there, but they chose not to take advice, legal advice from the senior lawyer. And then in 2018, February, Morgan Tsvangirai dies. Again, Nelson Chamisa got into power illegally with lawyers in the movement supporting that, but it was illegal. And he was told, I remember Harry Thomas, the American ambassador at the time, said, this is going to give you problems. And again, it was not listened to because of personality politics. He became president of the party, as opposed to Thokozani Kupe, who was supposed to be caretaker leader, and then they go to Congress. These mistakes opened the doors that ZANU-PF continued to use and manipulate. I think it's important for us not to focus on what ZANU-PF does, because we already know what ZANU-PF does. What we need to focus on is what is it that needs to be done to make sure that ZANU-PF does not do what it has always been doing in the past. Then we came to 2022. CCC was formed. I remember, and the evidence still is still on Twitter, Dr. Alex Magaisa advised the opposition to have a constitution. And he went on to say, even if it's not a permanent one, have a temporary one to avoid the discussions that were taking place. Again, that was not listened to because of personality politics. When people like myself raised this issue, we were bashed by the usual suspects on Twitter. And you know, we know what then happened with Chabangu, and that's the point I was correcting to, that was mentioned by Brighton. My point at the material time was that these problems are being created by the failure to have a constitution in a political party with senior lawyers, but there was no constitution. They play to the gallery because the ordinary supporter does not know better. These are a group of lawyers who are supporting illegalities that then came to haunt them. And we come to where we are now. We got a SADC report in 2023. Again, nothing much was done. At the material time, I mentioned that SADC leaders were complaining that the opposition in Zimbabwe has been given a report a report that doesn't resemble anything near the previous reports, but they had not done anything. Again, because of personality politics, nothing was done. Then 2-3 years later, Nelson Chamisa comes back. He says there was no one on the dance floor. And I agree with my brother, Agents Gumbo, that people were on the dance floor. Even people like Geza were on the dance floor. But he came back. That's fine. It's good because he was given more than 2 million votes by Zimbabweans, which is a huge chunk of votes. And probably if the election had not been rigged, he would have been president. But again, the message he put across was divisive, to say the Constitution doesn't exist. And when you are speaking to simpletons like myself, who are not lawyers, the message that was taken away by people like myself who are not lawyers was that the Constitution issue is not the issue. The issue is the 2023 election. But who are you going to address the 2023 election rigging to? Because I want to put it on the record. The head of the Commonwealth Observer Team, Dr. Amina Mohammed, the former Foreign Minister of Kenya, told me at the material time, she even said, call some of these senior guys. We went to see the opposition leader. He was alone. I've never seen someone who's doing so much to make sure that he doesn't win. Those were her words. And I'm quoting a verbatim. And again, when former President Chisano went to see the opposition leader, again, he didn't have a team. So these issues of personality politics have been with us, as I said, since Robert Mugabe. And we need to do away with personality politics and have politics of ideas, where if Ibo Mandaza is the leader of the political party, if he dies today, or if he's bought today by the other side, or if he's in a situation where he can't continue, everything is not affected because of one individual. As Nelson Chamisa said himself, opposition politics was on standstill because he was away. It's not something to be proud of, but it is what it is. Now, coming to the DCP, I have great respect for people like Agents Gumbo, Professor Mandaza, Professor Gwisai, because they're coming into a space during a time of a crisis, and it's a space where we don't have to argue about issues. There is a crisis which is going to destroy all of us, regardless of which political party you support in the opposition or which political leader you are behind in the opposition. We need to support it. And I also want to call upon my brothers that we don't want to have different centers pushing the same agenda. Come under one umbrella. It's already there. It has been set up, DCP. And what I like about the DCP is just like the idea that was put on the table by Tony Rila and Professor Mandaza of the NTA. The people in the DCP that are leading it, the convener and Timber, he does not want to be a leader of a political party. This is a situation which has been brought about by what ZANU-PF is doing. And we knew 3-4 years before this happened that it was coming. Now, it's important for us to come together. We might have our differences on this issue or that issue, but those differences will cause ZANU-PF to feel emboldened and for ZANU-PF to carry on with what they're doing. Today, Honorable Gumbo knows this, is a member of parliament. They went to parliament as the opposition. They agreed that they must go to their constituencies. But Chabangu and his charlatans put out a statement saying that they have agreed that they are going to support the ZANU-PF agenda. So it's important for people like Nelson Chamisa, for people like Tendai Biti, for people like my brother Agent Gumbo to come together and fight this particular battle together. I don't agree with Chamisa's position that we need to fight the 2023 election. Who are you going to fight the 2023 election with in terms of the support that is needed institutionally within SADC or even inside Zimbabwe? The 2023 election is gone, it's over. And what happened there was caused by the very same problem that we are saying it needs to be addressed, the issue of the constitution. Zimbabwe does not have a problem with its constitution. It has a problem with the implementation of the constitution or lack thereof. It's not implemented. So that is what we need to address. And it's important for someone like Nelson Chamisa, who got more than 2 million votes, to come on board and work with everyone else. If he decides not to work with everyone else, I can assure you that ZANU-PF will be in power post 2035. Because again, the argument, I think you all remember when I had a disagreement with what Chamisa had said in 2023, that parliament doesn't matter. We're a presidential republic. We need to focus on the president. And I said, no, that is wrong. Because even in the unlikely event that Mnangagwa says Chamisa has defeated me and he walks away, if you don't have parliament, you won't last a month in there. They will impeach you. So what has happened now shows that we need a strong, vibrant opposition. Emmerson Mnangagwa and those that will come after him realize that if there is a presidential election, they perform badly. Their party does well. And in sometimes there's Boram Sango. And they have gone in to fix a problem that their party was facing. And as Dr. Ngosana Moyolo says to me, why are you bothered about ZANU-PF doing bad things? ZANU-PF does bad things for survival. That's how it survives. Focus on making sure that those bad things do not affect you. And I think the most important thing at this point in time is to make sure that the bad things that are about to happen to this country do not happen, and there's a movement that is able to push back on that. We have gotten to a point, a despicable point, where ordinary people that Honorable Gumbo was talking about, who are not necessarily Triple C and have never been MDC, are now so disillusioned that they look at General Chiwenga as a source of hope. It's an indictment on the opposition when General Chiwenga, the man who was responsible for the massacres from Gukura Undi to 2008 to 2018, becomes a source of hope when the opposition is supposed to be filling that space. There is a void. It needs to be filled. And I think people need to unite. And when I say people need to unite, I'm not saying go and bring charlatans who have been responsible for the decimation of the opposition. I'm saying genuine opposition players that have had differences, that have attacked each other, should put that behind them and face off this problem that our country finds itself in. Thank you.
Thanks, Opa. Since you're the last but not the least, we have to begin summing up, and unfortunately, we have to begin with you. Thanks for that historical outline, which you gave.
Prof,
and I just want to add also that...
I can't hear Professor Mandaza.
Professor Mandaza, Professor, I was interrupted. I was interrupted because you said Chipo was...
Professor Mandaza.
Professor Mandaza, Professor, I was interrupted. I was interrupted because you said Chipo was leaving, Professor, so I didn't get to finish to sum up my submissions.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you. I don't know about others, but I'm saying when I was speaking, when it was my turn.
Hello?
I don't think you can hear us.
It's gone. It's the internet. I can't do anything about that.
Tony,
perhaps
can you hear us?
Matabuka, you could speak. Prof might not be hearing you. Why don't you take the floor,
I
Matabuka?
don't. Yeah, I wanted to get the go ahead from Tony. So and then so that when Professor comes back in, he doesn't. I wanted to get the go ahead from Tony. And then I can hear some feedback on my end. Don't know if you can hear it.
Yeah. Perhaps they might have lost things. So I think just proceed so that we have continuity. We're with consensus.
Sorry about that. Hope, can you hear me? Hope? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Prof, we'd suggest that Matabuka.
We can't hear you on this one, but I've had to go to YouTube in order to hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? David? Hello?
I can hear you, Prof. I can hear you myself.
I can hear you, Prof. Maybe just David? Proceed. I can hear you. Ibo Mandaza, we can hear you.
Opal, can you hear me?
I can't hear you, but I've had to go to YouTube in order to hear you. On YouTube, you are audible. I can't hear.
Hello, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you. A big mess.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've got these internet connection problems. Yeah. Right now, I hear what you're saying, but I'm mindful of time. So I think the way to go with this thing now is to go back in sequence. Ibo, are you back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I have to ask, can you hear me? I can hear you, yes. Can you hear me?
You can hear me. Okay. So just
can
to
you
fill
hear
you
me?
in where you drop. Yeah, yes. We can hear you. So just to fill you in, Brighton was asking whether he could continue the last of his submission, and I'm handing over to you as chair. The point I was about to make was that given the time, maybe we need to go back through the speakers to make their last comments in order. You know, from Munya to.
I was about to do that precisely. Beginning with Hopewell. Beginning with Hopewell himself. Yeah, Hopewell, thanks for that outline you gave. I just wanted to add to what you said, and also to
Prof, don't you think it might be better to allow Mtabuka to come in since Hopewell has just finished, but in doing so he rounds up? I thought it would be fair, since a lot of things were said about him.
Okay, that's fine. But before Mtabuka comes in, you are next, Brighton. I want to. You made something about reference to Chamisa not getting the requisite support in 2018 and 2023. I think that's far from the truth. I was involved in formation of the formation of the MDC alliance. I am the one that went to BT and Welshman to join our young man Nelson, and I worked very close with Nelson throughout 2018 up to 2022. 22, we at SAPES held 10 policy dialogues series. I think you came on one of them, Brighton. And what was the verdict? The verdict was, as in 2013, don't go for elections. Don't go for elections. That was the verdict of an audit process. But somehow, the opposition had a penchant for rushing into elections. Regardless, I was, as Hopewell said, I was in Maputo in 2013. When Morgan, BT, Welshman were told by the heads of state, not only Zuma, the heads of state of SADC, outside summit, said, don't dare go for the elections because you will not win those elections. They're already rigged. And on the 3 days before the elections, Morgan Sangrai phoned me on my way back from the US. I was in London. And she says, you know what, Tejara, the elections have been rigged already. This is 3 to 5 days before the elections. You know? So this penchant of rushing into elections, regardless of the electoral reforms which are necessary, is something that must be put aside. You know? So anyway, Brighton, that's your last word?
Well, thank you, bro. I'll briefly summarize the last bit of my submissions and then go into the last word. One of the things that I want to say is, which I think is very powerful, you all spoke about seriousness and about the importance of unity. Now, what is unity? Is it quantity? Is it qualitative? In my opinion, human relations, Prof, their foundation is trust, good communication, respect, courtesy, all of those intrinsic qualities and values. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is this. Now, it was alleged, well, it was said that, for instance, Chamisa said there is no constitution in Zimbabwe. Now, for me, I took that as clearly a metaphor which was meant to dramatize the fact that Zimbabwe's constitution has been repeatedly breached by the regime, violated and vandalized to the extent where, although it exists on paper, in reality, the essence and the spirit of constitutionalism does not exist. So that is clearly the point that he was making. But this has been weaponized. And everyone is saying he is not a serious politician. How can he dare say there is no constitution when the text is there, when such and such is protected? Now, when that is done, he's a human being like everyone else, like you are. The sting that comes with that damages relations. I'll come up to Hopo. Hopo has repeatedly attacked Chamisa in views that I think are intemperate and are way overboard. If you go on Hopo's Twitter, on X account right now, check his tweet on 16 June 2022. What does Hopo say? He says, oh, ZANU-PF is struggling with Chamisa's strategic ambiguity. They cannot know who holds what structure, and this is protecting office holders. Now, that is clearly support that is being made. Further down the road, we see inconsistency and Chamisa being bashed on something that previously was being supported. You see, that damages trust. We also must acknowledge, I will say this, for instance, why consistency is important, and also when you criticize in good faith and there is trust, what you're saying is much more likely to be entertained by the party you're talking to and you're trying to reach.
Brighton, let's look forward now. We have
right. Prof, we are looking
forward. Let's put aside this because we don't want Hope coming in and saying I didn't say that. Let's just leave that out for the moment.
No. He did highlight what I said, and I wanted to address that. So when it came to Chabango, it was said that senior MPs were funding a legitimate campaign. So the reason why I'm saying this, I'm talking about unity. You spoke about Chamisa's 2.2 million votes. Chamisa must come on board. But in order for that to happen, you must ensure that you gain his trust, you build relations with him so that he feels that he's in a comfortable space. When he represents those people now and is part of that agenda and that project, he should not therefore then feel alienated. So I support the cause for unity. For what it takes, when it comes to me, in terms of the picture that I'm seeing, the end goal, in my view, what Agency said is correct, which is that ultimately, what we seek is the same. We seek to defeat Agenda 2030 and to protect the Constitution. But where we differ, in my view, the point that I highlighted about narrowness is that in terms of finding a permanent solution, an effective strategy which addresses not just this situation, but previous ones as well, we must include the issue not just of elections in 2023, but previous elections, and recognize that the actual problem is that we've got a government and a regime that doesn't value constitutionalism. So if you identify that, we can combine the two that you have identified, Professor. We can combine what you're saying in terms of protecting the Constitution, but we also have to tie that with the actual end goal. If we protect the Constitution, what happens 3, 4, 5, 6 months further down the road if the same regime continues to breach the Constitution? Hence why I'm saying we must ensure that we have a final solution which addresses all the previous violations and ensures that the regime is stopped from future violations. If we don't do that, we'll continue going round and round and round in circles and not address the core problem, because the issue is about addressing the core problem. And also, if we are going to do that, if we can be honest, Chiwenga is a player, but not for the reasons identified by Hopo. He is a player because electoral politics and democracy has clearly been demobilized by the regime. So because those aspects have been demobilized, people have lost hope in electoral politics. And they now think that because of the coup, because of his role in November 2017, Chiwenga has got capacity to confront ED's regime from within and use the deep state and state apparatus to neutralize ED's own tools and therefore get over the line that way, because democracy and electoral politics has been demobilized. And it might very well be, if we're being honest, one of the reasons why Geza's protest on the 31st of March failed. They were courageous. That call, that clarion call, will reverberate for many years in our history. But the reason why it failed is essentially at the core, people are fearful of the repercussions of going onto the streets and directly confront ED's regime. And the thinking is, people can only have that courage, like we saw in November 2017, if they feel that part of the deep state has got a buy-in in terms of supporting any protest that comes in, so that they become the guarantors. And therefore, if the regime wants to attack citizens, they will have protection or buy-in from part of the regime. That's where Chiwenga's relevance is. So these two players, Chiwenga and Chamisa, cannot be avoided. They are the big beasts in our politics at the moment. One has got hardware, the other one has got software. And the challenge of the day is to bring them together, and then the rest of civic society, the rest of intellectuals, the rest of society, so that we then create a powerful vehicle which is credible in terms of its trust and what it seeks to achieve. Thank you.
Thanks, Brighter. Thanks very much. Chipo, are you still with us?
Hello, I am.
Your last words?
Yes, I think a lot of these conversations, first of all, I'm so disappointed in my male colleagues. None of you jumped on to make any comments about the Gender Commission.
I did.
It's right there. It's an easy issue to talk about, to address. I mean, we cannot address this without all the voices of the people, right? Like, gender issues are not women's issues only. But something else that I hoped that MP Kumbo would address is, what is Chabango's role in Parliament? Who is your parliamentary leader? What does this mean? What is your caucus leadership saying about the issue that we're dealing with? And then finally, I think we need to move away from elite-focused conversations and really focus about, so people talk often about Chamisa received 2 million votes. He did. But where are the 2 million people and where are our voices? I'm really concerned that as long as the citizenry, because the opposition, there'll be 200 of them at most, right? There'll be 200 of them. They can't do it alone. And we need to convince every single voter that your vote matters and you need to speak up for your vote. So those 2 million people that voted for him, they need to consistently engage. And because the government will respond. Do you remember during the coup, and Robert Mugabe says, they ask him a question on, do you see what's happening outside? And he looks, I think he's looking at the news, and apparently he said, well, all of those people that are protesting are not my people. My people would not be protesting me. And I think the question we have to ask about the Constitution is, where are the people for the Constitution? We're sitting
Thanks.
here as elites. We are in our WhatsApp groups. We're repeating the same conversations here that we have in the privacy of our WhatsApp groups that have other elites. But where are the people? Where are those 2 million voters? What is our plan? One of the things I hoped today is that we would talk about how to engage the average voter, right, on the different levels of constituency. How are we going to support civil society? How are we going to support the media so that they get the information out? So this elite focused conversation, it's great, it's important, these players matter, but ultimately we need to get every single voter engaged. If there were 2 million of us, then there should be 2 million voices. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chipo. Thank you very much. Agency, some of the questions there from Chipo, you can answer them, surely.
Well, thank you very much, Prof. There, and I must first say that this is not so much the role of a single individual in the mold of Chabangu. We have seen what Chabangu has done, and we have insisted that he has acted as an extension of ZANU-PF authoritarian entrenchment, and that he has achieved through the recalls. We have gone to court and we have succeeded to get him interdicted from doing those recalls. Hence, there's not been any recalls for some time now. We believe that now this struggle really lies with the people, and as I've mentioned earlier, to say it is now incumbent upon us to organize the ground, to organize the people in these various constituencies, to be the ones to interface with their parliamentarians.
Again.
Sorry? Okay, to interface with the parliamentarians at ground level. While we are in parliament, we are not stopping the advocacy, we are not stopping the engagements with progressive MPs. Not because we believe that, the progressive MPs constitute an adequate number to stop the vote, but I want to believe that the oath that members of parliament took is an oath that goes beyond power retention desires. It's an oath to protect the Constitution. So we are not stopping the debate. We are not stopping even engaging ZANU-PF MPs, because we do believe that there is politics that is going to come to parliament, and that politics is going to be a politics of the 2/3 vote that is required to even approve the constitutional amendments. We are not oblivious of those legal requirements and constitutional provisions, even before we get to the referendum. So there is conversation that we have started. There are midnight conversations even, because we are alive to politics. And we are playing that politics even in parliament. Just on my last bite, Doc, I was responding to Chipo. Just my last bite is that this is a moment in history which I believe will be described in either of two ways. Number one, it will be a period when constitutional guardrails were weakened in silence, or weakened while we were bickering, against each other. Or number two, this is going to be a period where, which will be remembered as a period when citizens and institutions renewed their commitment to the building of democratic institutions, to building of a constitutional democracy in Zimbabwe. So we have a task, we have a role, comrades and friends. We must go down to the street and make sure that we win this fight.
Thanks very much, Agency. Thanks very much. Hopewell, your last word?
Thank you very much, Prof. I think there are two things which Chipo said that I want to accentuate. The issue of leadership. She mentioned leadership, and then she mentioned the 2 million votes, but I want to focus on the issue of leadership because it's very important. I think 2 million votes, as Agent said, some of them don't even belong to Chamisa's political party or movement. These are just individuals. There are people that don't necessarily vote for you, but vote against the incumbent. And those people need to be led. And that's why I was saying that it's important for the DCP to be a one-stop shop for that kind of leadership to emerge, so that those that are pro-Gwisai, those that are pro-Mandaza, those that are pro-Chamisa, pro-BT, they all find common ground in that one organization. If we have different organizations, then we are splitting the vote, and that's exactly what ZANU-PF wants. And that's why you find that online, citizens start talking about people being bored, it's all because of that. When they see certain people moving in directions that are, I would say, contrary to what needs to be done. And I think the other important thing is to be, not to be ambivalent, but to be straight and say what is happening is wrong. What is happening has got a direct impact on your life. Again, coming back to what Chipo said, it's important to educate the citizens. I did I would say a case study at Chingono village in Murewa, where most of the elders there were very pro ZANU-PF. But after 2 years, they all understood that there are problems about health. I focus a lot on health because it affects all of us. They understood that there are problems with health emanated from a weak constitution which is not being implemented. Some didn't even know that there's a provision within the constitution that the government must fulfill in terms of health delivery. So we must educate people. We must make them understand that if this constitution or constitutional amendment passes as it is, what are the repercussions at individual level? In Murewa, in Mashingo, in Cholocho, everywhere in the country, what are the repercussions? And I think, again, I'll come back to, by finishing, saying that it's just like the issue that yourself, Professor Mandaza, and Tony Rila brought to the table, the issue of the NTA. The beauty of the NTA and the beauty of the DCP is the same, that the people that are leading it are not wanting to be political leaders of political parties. They are not saying, I want to be a presidential candidate. They are saying we have a crisis in our country. This crisis requires a certain intervention, and that intervention requires all of us. I've disagreed with Brighton Tebuka so many times to a point where we even blocked each other on Twitter. But if we don't address the issue of the Constitution, he will suffer as much as I'm going to suffer. So it's important for both of us to understand that it's in our best interest to focus on this issue that is going to damage how we are going to survive as Zimbabweans. Some of us can't even go back to Zimbabwe. It's a constitutional issue. It's got nothing to do with all these other things. It's because the government is not following the Constitution. And I want to end by saying elections have been rigged, and they've been rigged from 2000 to 2002 to 2005 to 2008 to 2013. So 2018 and 2023 are not special. Elections have been rigged. Every election, I remember when I was a little boy working for the BBC, interviewing Professor Gusai and Tendai Biti when they were in Highfield. Elections were being rigged. So let's focus on the antidote to make sure that elections are not rigged, and that antidote is the Constitution. And let's not destroy the house because of our differences. Like what happened even in the MDC, Mnyarazi Gwisai, I flew with him to London, and he was talking socialism all the way to Heathrow. You might have your disagreements with Mnyarazi Gwisai, but the way he was removed from Highfield was wrong, because he was talking about land. And at that time, people like Professor Mandaza were trying to knock sense into Morgan Tsvangirai that this young man is talking sense. Land is an issue. But, thankfully, by the end of his life, Morgan Tsvangirai was now talking Mnyarazi Gwisai's language of land. But was it worth it to destroy an individual that you agree with on so many things just because of one issue? So let's do away with personality politics. Let's focus on ideas. Let's focus on ideas in such a way that even when Gwisai is not there, DCP continues. Even when Agents Gumbo is not there, it continues. Thank you.
Prof, one quick question. One question to you.
No.
Just one.
No.
One,
no.
Prof. It's relevant
Sorry.
to all the panel.
No,
Prof.
it's the last question. I gave you your chance. Thanks, Hopo. Thanks very much. Gwisai, the last word.
Thank you, Ibo. I think a very fruitful evening and discussion, and we need this. And I think we've taken a historical tour. Why were there no, why didn't people do something about what happened before? This is not happening for the first time. So obviously these have been incremental attacks that have happened. Amendment number 1, amendment number 2, and so forth. So the reasons I think have been articulated, reasons that relate to absence of a vision of and understanding of what was happening and where it was going. Leadership weakness and leadership crisis, leadership self-interest. I mean, Obo spoke about it, and the others spoke about, Ibo, you spoke about it. And indeed, co-option, collaborationism with an authoritarian state. You see, when you're fighting an authoritarian state over time, one of the biggest problems is towards drift of co-option, exhaustion, and people making their bed within that parameter. So the fact that the opposition was guaranteed at least, up to 40% of seats, control of all urban areas, mayorships and so forth. And then once you're in the GNU, positions and pecs. David Coulthard writes about how his colleagues were all concerned and worried, about the new privileges that they had and forgetting about the need to fight for reform. So all those are factors. And I think also strategically, with time, there was, and in particular with the change in the class configuration of the leadership of the opposition, where in the late 90s and early 2000s, the working class had played the decisive leadership role. And the working class methods of fighting were methods of fighting at the workplace, fighting in the streets. By the time we get to your late 2000s, those kind of methods were no longer happening and were looked down upon. There was emphasis on litigation, advocacy, international, regional advocacy. But we've now seen the limitations of those methods. 2018 was clear. The opposition led by Chamisa went to the Constitutional Court, and clearly a situation of a compromised judicial framework did not bring results. By 2023, Chamisa was not prepared to go to the Constitutional Court. He put faith in SADC, regional institutions, but again, also that did not work. What Geza was able to show in February and March 2025 was the effectiveness of those same methods that working people and others had used after 96, 97, 98, 99. And he ignited a national interest so powerful that Mnangagwa got scared of proceeding with it, afraid of the shutdowns. So that is the same moment, I think, that we have arrived to. And Chipo has raised an important issue. Where are the 2 million? Where the Generation Z, the Gen Z? If we are going to have a true strong fight for democracy and defense of the Constitution, we have to move away from elite-driven politics, elite-driven constitutionalism, and speak the language of the villager, in Cholocho, speak the language of the youth who's an informal worker in Mutare, in Mashingo. So that is the challenge. And as we seek to build this movement, and the difference now is, whereas before you had incremental attacks, the nature of the attacks that are represented by the 2026 Constitutional Amendment Bill is an existential attack. It's an attack on the fundamental basis of democracy. So even those who might have felt things may be changed piecemeal or using methods, there is anger. And I think there is possibility of people coming together, because but I think the basis of having many people now being part of this struggle is there. And therefore, that's why we require a united movement. I think that is the big message. A united movement that speaks not an elite language, but a language that is heard by the workers, the informal economy, the villagers, the war veterans. And the possibility of that language being cross-party in the opposition and within sections of the ruling party itself is real. But it must be a movement that is not based on the big man or big woman, the messiah figure. It must be a movement that is internally democratic and principled. And the good thing about this fight is that it is not a fight like in an election where you are fighting for a position, who's going to be president, who's going to be an MP. Why unity is possible is that we are fighting around a cause, around a principle, and therefore it becomes possible to bring people together. It is a challenge, but our history, as I've said, the moment of 31st March showed that if we are united and we are ready to fight, we'll be able to take through. The most powerful aspect, ultimately, as we keep on saying, is the referendum of the people. Yeah, as the next 90 days come, Chipo has spoken that we don't have time. She's true. Once this is gazetted, we have 90 days. In terms of Section 328 of the Constitution, the Minister of Justice will have to carry public consultations over the next 90 days. There will be consultations across the breadth and width of Zimbabwe. And what we are saying is, in our differences, we must ensure that we go to these public consultations, put across a message of rejection of this plunder and pillage of democracy in the country, demand that whatever changes happen must happen through a referendum as provided for in the Constitution. And if in fact the politicians refuse to grant the referendum, let the people have their own referendum in their own millions, in their workplaces, msikayavo, at their growth points, at their campuses. Because we've done it before, we can do so now. If in fact there is this unity across the board that we're talking about, initially at a leadership level, it is that will help inspire the ordinary woman, the ordinary youth that Chipo has talked about, to see that there is now hope and possibility of fighting back. Like that Ngulumane woman who stood up with the constitution and said, this is our sacrosanct contract. Do you stand with it or not? Let us have 1 million Ngulumane women. There's no politician who stand before that. Thank you.
Well, Gusai, thanks very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear
me? Yes, Ibo, I can hear you.
Yeah, Brighton, I defer to you. Your question?
Question to all of the panel is this. For me, the biggest question that people are asking on the streets is, there are two of them. Number one, how does DCP and anyone who wants to participate in the protest, how can they feel that the solution or the outcome of the fruits of DCP would not result in further breaches being done further down the road, which then throws away all those efforts they would have put in? So in other words, the current narrative is that the current constitution and even the previous one was repeatedly breached by the regime because it simply does not adhere to the concept of constitutionalism. So if the current fight is successful and the current constitution is preserved, what happens further down the road? We're still dealing with the same regime. We're still dealing with ZANU-PF and this lack of commitment to adhering to constitutionalism. So if that fight is won, how do we avoid a situation where we see another ZANU-PF regime simply getting into power, continuing along the same path? So that's where I think there is a credibility gap. If a credible answer is not found to that question, then you're going to have a problem where we don't have enough people coming to rally behind the cause. So if that is addressed, that can potentially result in people rallying around the cause. So that issue on mobilization is absolutely crucial. And also the second one, the fear of protests. How can that be credibly dealt with? I highlighted what Geza's challenge was. And I did say that in my view, there is no doubt that's not a responsibility on you, but it's crucial to have the buy-in of part of the deep state so that they can also guarantee that safety. There's no doubt that November 2017 was choreographed, but part of the reason why it was successful was because soldiers were in the street and they were guaranteeing safety. And that fear factor, we must address it because that is credible and well-founded and objective in light of how the regime has consistently behaved towards peaceful protests. Thank you.
No, I think both are not really questions. I think they are profound advice to the DCP, and I think we take note of that.
Thank you.
But I think the point was made here. It's not about the Constitution of being sacrosanct. It's the point that the Constitution remains the supreme law of the land. It is a framework for the interaction between the rulers and the ruled. It sets out the rights of the people. It's an elaborate document. And if the Constitution is implemented, well, first defended, and secondly implemented as it should be, then the issue of elections is taken care of. This is the point being made. And even though your questions are hypothetical as what happens down the road, I think if ZANU-PF loses, if Mnangagwa loses this fight, and I think he's going to lose it, okay? And the DCP is there to ensure that he loses it. There'll be major repercussions for him, such as I don't think the state will survive that. It's an end game that he has played. He has thrown the gauntlet to the people. This might be his demise.
But that makes the state.
And out of the demise must rise new things. That's why we talk about the NTA. The NTA is a framework through which the reform exercise, implementation of the Constitution can take place, at the end of which political parties can compete on an even playing field, on a Constitution which is fully implemented, including electoral reforms. Before that, forget it. And I think the second point I want to make is that the DCP is not a political party. I think Gusai has made the point very clear. It's a mobilizing platform, bringing all parties, all organs of society together to face this momentous time. For me,
does the regime make that distinction, Prof?
I cut my politics in 1971. The PS Commission, do you remember it?
Yes.
People didn't make reference. The PS Commission was a similar challenge as one we're facing now, where Edson Sitole, Josiah Namano, Edson Zobo mobilized, and we put up a broad framework which was called the ANC at that time as a movement, and we defeated the PS Commission. And as you said, the MDC in 2000 mobilized the population, and the Constitutional Commission, in which some of us were involved, was defeated. And the DCP is seeking to do exactly the same, right? And provide the framework tomorrow for competitive party politics in a free and constitutional Zimbabwe. I think on that note, and in particular, the concluding note remarks by Gusai are very important. Ordinarily, the 90 days of consultation is a period which precedes a referendum. Okay? They're not saying that the Jonathan Moyers of this world, but that is very important. Now, we have to convert that, the end of the 90 days, into a referendum of a sort. Either by the volume of turnout or the national response, Mnangagwa retreats with his document, or he faces the wrath of the population. I think that we simply have to make it high stakes, which it is. On that note, I want to thank the panelists. We have almost 700 people. This is a record, by the way. We had 900 the other day for a similarly provocative situation. And I want to thank those who have joined us, the 700 plus, and the thousands who will join us by tomorrow on YouTube. For us here, as a public platform that we are, it is a fair reflection of how this issue is high stakes in our society. And many of you out there in the diaspora, you are part of this process. We in the DCP are going to make sure that we have the diaspora mobilized through people like yourselves, Brighton, people like Chipo, people like Hopewell, down wherever he is, that we make this an occasion for national mobilization. And I think this is a good start in that process. I thank you again. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, colleagues.
Please support this program by
Thank you,
liking
everyone.
this
Thank
video
you, Prof.
and subscribe to our channel.
Thank you,
We'll meet
everyone.
again around a similar theme. Thank you very much. And Chipo's book, we look forward to your book, Chipo. Come home. We'll give you a platform at SAPES for the launch. Okay.
All the best, Chipo.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Africa, oh, the panda. Con